Hi, my name is Joram and I like to make stuff. And today I want to make this little robot here. I made a couple of drawings of what it could look like to figure out the basic style and dimensions. To start, I picked up some aluminium wire and bent it roughly into shape. And then I made like this little two-legged little guy here, and he just needed some arms, and so I gave it some arms and attached it. And now, with a little magic, it has the first bit of a body. I just started adding lumps, pressing them down, making them attached to the wire, which was surprisingly hard to do. I gave it a little bit of an underpants situation there and put them in the oven to set. In the meantime, I created a little thing that looks like a gun, but it's not a gun. This is a peaceful build. I wanted to make something that's sort of post-apocalyptic but utopian, so something positive for the post-apocalypse. So I decided to make a little Solarpunk robot. And what does a little Solarpunk robot need? A little hand drill to repair things and fix things. So I made a little battery-powered drill here. I gave it some texture with this shaping tool that works really well to create some texture for handles and material. Also, I made sure that the drill works. And then I continued to make more accessories for my little guy. This lump here I pressed down, squeezed hard and turned into a box-shaped box. With the help of some blunt force and a primitive tool, I refined the shape. And then I made a little indentation with my tool there, just to sort of make a little pocket or something where I can look into this little box. I poked it and stabbed it and squeezed it a little bit around until it got big enough. I did the same thing for the top of my little box here, creating sort of an open bag of some sort, specifically a bag that you can strap to the back of someone. So yeah, this is a backpack. Again, this little backpack gets the squeezy treatment and some more refining of the shape. I pressed the emblem into the front with a screw head and then used a lumpy lump to create a little side pocket to hold side pocket items. I also added a little piece of wire hanging out of the back, because what is my little robot going to do in the post-apocalypse? It is going to wander around looking for scrap material and using it to its own advantage. Then I used my scalpel to roughen up the texture of this bit of fabric or material or whatever to make it nicer to paint in the end. With the backpack in the oven, I then continue the accessory creation by creating two flat rectangles from a little bit of rolled down clay. And because this is a sci-fi setting, I not only press in some texture on the top, but I also create sci-fi corners on all edges here, because we're in the future, we kind of need angled corners. With these plates in the oven, I can repeat the process to create some chest plates to give some more definition to the upper body. And so I cut out two almost identical pieces that I then could put on my little robot here, trying to get it to stick, and then use my tool to sort of roll it into shape and then trim off the excess bits that are not exactly where they're supposed to be. I then deepened the crevice between its two chest plates before spending a lot of time shaping and refining the back, because I had forgotten by that time that I'm building a backpack, so it will cover all of it. While I was doing less useful things, I also texturized this butt. Why? I don't really know. With my little guy in the oven, it's now time to build a base for it. So I used some MDF plate here, stuck them together, and then I used some clay to create some more interesting surface on there. I used my tool again to scrape the clay around and sort of even out the transition between the different areas and create a semi-organic structure here. Once baked, I used my own personal drill to make a little hole here, and then I could place my little guy in there. So my guy needs a head, so with the base almost done, I started shaping first the rough general shape of the head, trying to get it attached to the little knob on its neck. For the hands, I had the clever idea to just stick them to the underside of these panels here, of which we will soon figure out what they're good for, and just make little simple 3-fingered hands, pressing them underneath this plate here. Maybe this is just a pizza board? Is this a little robot that got into pizza making in the post-apocalypse? I guess we'll never know. Anyway, I then attached the hands to the exposed part of the wire from its arm and positioned it where I wanted it to be. I then added a little chin to my guy and poked its eyes, because it kept looking at me weirdly. I then used my knife to score the chin and to give it some more texture, and accidentally turned it into some sort of skull face, which I actually didn't really plan to do. I wanted to make a friendly looking little robot and instead gave it this sort of horrible sci-fi skull look. Then I attached the backpack with some more clay, undoing all of the work I did for texturing the back. What a nice little guy. I did now the same thing for the second plate here, with the second hand attaching it to the second arm. I then created a little strap for the backpack that it can wrap around its chest, and then I cut off the excess bit and shaped it into the rest of the backpack. Then I attached a little drill to its side into like a holster thing. I guess the drill just needs to be ready in case there is a duel with another robot. Within seconds, this robot is ready to drill. I then used a little knob in here to create an attachment point, and I created a second attachment point here in the back of the robot. And now I guess it's time to reveal what these plates are good for. This little robot is a solar-powered robot, and it's charging up its battery with 2 solar panels that it's holding while standing in the sun. A thick cable is going from the solar panel into its back, so it can actually charge its internal batteries. So here I blend the connection point with my tool for this little robot, and then I do the same thing on the other side. 2 panels require 2 wires. Again, I'm blending it all together so it looks pretty neat. I then attached another knobbin on the shoulder on my first try, because while I was making these 2 wires, I was like, what about a third wire, or maybe a hydraulic line? I don't really know what it's good for, but it goes from the shoulder to its arm here. With all the details ready and baked, I can now work on the rest of the base. I stuck the robot to the base and gave it some feet, which I'm not showing here because of wiki feet, and then I used some wood glue and sand from the shoes of my kids to give this base a nicer texture. Then it was ready to prime. I did a thing called zenithal highlighting, where you spray some white paint from the top to cover the black base primer. This is somehow supposed to help with painting, but it didn't really help me with painting. Anyway, I started brushing some browns on the ground to give it a basic ground color, and this is supposed to be some sort of soil with some lighter shades of white and grey on top. While I was giving the first coat, I was also adding some grey on this little piece of metal that's on the ground here, and also the little rock that I glued down there. Then I blended some colors because I'm too cheap to buy individual shades for everything that I need, and I mixed here some green, some yellow and some white to create this sort of horrid looking toxic bright green. And then, to get a break from all of the green, I started painting the solar panels in a dark bluish black with some blue highlights to give it that look of these big polycrystalline solar panels. I then painted the backpack, again in a nice bright green on all sides. I continued to paint the wires in a nice attention-grabbing yellow because these are electrical wires and they need to be handled with care. For the drill I used a sort of bluish green, and if you buy a certain consumer brand of hand drills in Germany you might recognize that color. This is a brand loyal little robot. With the first layer of things done, I gave the drill bit a little metallic painting and then started creating some more differential coloring. I used a lighter color to tint the legs pieces and also for the arm pieces. I then thought it might be nice to give it some white shoulders, and so I created a layer of white there on the shoulder pieces on both sides. I then also changed the color on the other part of the chest plate because I didn't really like that green. I think in the end I almost painted every single surface that had this initial color of green in a different shade. So there I'm continuing that by giving the belt a much darker green and also painting the side pocket. The yellow wire needed a second layer because yellow is a bitch to paint, and then I made that little fabric red because I didn't have really any other place where I could put some red on this little robot, and I wanted to have some red as contrast for the green. I then used a brown wash, which was the first time for me to ever use a wash, and covered the whole base in that brownish wash to give it all of the recesses a darker color, and that worked really well. I really like the look of it, and you can see here how quickly this rather flat surface gets some depth, and because it worked so well here I strategically washed the rest of the robot as well. You can also see that my camera was not set up properly and it would always focus on my hand instead of whatever I was painting, so I'm sorry for a lot of the blurry images in this video. Next time I guess I will have it figured out, but this time I obviously didn't. So with all of the washing done, you can see how ironically it looks much dirtier. On top of the yellow wire I created some red attention-grabbing stripes, turning it into a rather alarming combination of colors, so I gave it another wash. I then colored some of the recesses on the body of the robot to give it some extra contrast, and then I started the dry brushing. Again, because of the focus issue I didn't show all of the brushing that I did, but I did some extensive dry brushing, trust me. First some silvers on all of the metal parts, and then I used some darker colors to do a sort of reverse dry brushing from the bottom to give it some shaded area from below. I dry brushed also the edges of my solar panels to give them this little metallic shape, and also gave it a makeover in the face. I then dry brushed some highlights on top of the head and shoulders and everything that sort of sees the light. This created quite a strong highlight that I later brought down a little bit with some more detailing and some more color. I dry brushed the arms and all of the top exposed bits and created more detail in the process. I really like dry brushing because it creates details so quickly. To turn the detail knob to 11, I used a new fine detail brush to stipple in some details on the edges of things like this delicious foot and also the piece of metal there on the ground. I then gave my little guy here pink eye, not only because it looks cute, but also to use the pink as a base for the yellow I'm adding next. Shout out to the random redditor who said this was a good idea. It really was. Then I did some more dry brushing on the ground, giving some more highlights on top of all that very dark color from the wash and turning the stone into a more stone-like appearance with just overall a bit more definition. With that done, what's left to do is to paint the edge of the base in a nice dark black, and now we can create some pretty pictures. With that, I want to thank you for watching. This is my first little sculpt that I've ever done, really, with some extensive painting and lots of things I tried for the first time. My goal here is to create friendlier and cozier miniatures than the ones you usually see online, as an alternative to all the violence and gore. I want to make this place a little relaxing spot to recharge your batteries, just like my little robot does. Bye bye.